groups for some reason gets to be the spokesman, like the media decides that, and then you know, a lot of people don't. Dave Chappelle's friend who got bullied to death, basically, his trans friend.
By the way, it's not some random media spokesman. This is the overwhelming consensus of the medical community. They're the ones putting out that we completely support this. We feel that this is an effective and safe method of lowering children who experience gender dysphoria. Like, why is it that you think that this is just some loudmouth, blue-haired, online LGBTQ plus individual who's just making all this noise, and you have to be so careful about what you say, because if you say the wrong thing, you get the cancel. And then when you get the cancel, everyone's going to think you're transphobic, and that's a terrible thing to be labeled with.
Now, Bill Maher said some stuff for about 9 minutes on trans kids and the trans issue. And now, kids. I always thought Maher was a fastball down the middle Democrat, right? He donated $1 million to Barack Obama on air. He's loved that he voted for Hillary, voted for Biden, hates Trump, the whole thing. And so I think this is maybe a watershed moment for the kind of. I think Bill Maher has a place in our culture. He's propped up by the establishment on HBO, which gives him, you know, cachet, and he actually influences the culture. And that's why I'm jealous of him, because he has.
We know, Jimmy. Anyone who's got more viewers than me.
It's obvious I'm jealous of him. But anyway, so I'm going to play this, and maybe we'll stop it a few times, because I thought this really, I predict this will shift the conversation. Right now, most people I know are afraid to talk about trans issues because they're going to say the wrong thing, and they're going to get in trouble, and they're going to get canceled, just like when Patton Oswalt took a picture with Dave Chappelle that had to apologize for it.
You see Mulaney stand silent?
Oh, shit! I can't watch this. Oh, no. We got a banned streamer on camera right now. I didn't let him speak. He hasn't said anything. Why is Jackson Hinkle here to talk about this? Yes, I would like to know Jackson Hinkle's thoughts on trans people. Well, we'll just skip past any of the parts where they pop in.
Jump in, let me know.
And finally, new rule: if something about the human race is changing at a previously unprecedented rate, we have to at least discuss it. Broken down over time, the LGBT population of America seems to be roughly doubling every generation. According to a recent Gallup poll, less than 1% of Americans born before 1946, that's Joe Biden's generation, identify that way. 2.6% of boomers do, 4.2% of Gen X, 10.5%.
Put a blur over his face. All right, hold on. This is fine, right?
Of millennials, and 20.8% of Gen Z, which means if we follow this trajectory, we will all be gay in 2054.
Based.
28% of Gen Z consider themselves gay or LGBTQ. That's a lot.
And yet Brian Stelter stays with his beard.
I don't think it's okay.
Yes, I'm just going to skip ahead their commentary here.
I'm just saying that when things change this much, this fast, people are allowed to ask, what's up with that? All the babies are in the wrong bodies? Was there a mix-up at the plant, like with Captain Crunch's Oops, All Berries? It wasn't that long ago.
Who's the Beanie covering? Jackson Hinkle was brought on to Jimmy Dore's special segment on Bill Maher pushes back against trans extremism.
When adults asked a kid, what do you want to be
with allies like these, eh?
When you grow up, they meant what profession? In the wake of America about to lose abortion rights, the ACLU recently tweeted a list of those who would be disproportionately harmed by this. You would think women might top that list. No, wasn't even on the list. Second on the list was LGBT. Really? Abortion rights affects gay and trans people more than, you know, breeders?
So I think this is a response to people who always thought they were allies. I always thought I was an ally of the LGBTQ community. I mean, I've learned a lot about trans people in the last 10 years that has, in my view, have shifted a lot on that. And so I think this is a response to people who feel like they're allies who still are afraid that they're going to get in trouble. But anyway, here we go.
You think that's it? Also, why, Jimmy Dore, do you get to define yourself as the ally? I don't understand that part. Wouldn't the trans community, shouldn't they be saying, by the way, we'd like to give some thanks to Jimmy Dore for being a strong ally to our community or something of that nature, rather than just consistently bragging that, well, I'm an ally, you know? I want to ally in my own way. And if you don't accept the way that I'm allying, then obviously you're the enemy.
That chart, I'm curious, like, you know, where they're projecting the chart, like on the chart, do they include like people who like switch? Because never mind just trans, like there's now 64 like genders that, remember Talia Lavin that Glenn Greenwald was talking about, where she like, I'm a man, oh, I'm back to a woman now.
Yeah, 2 weeks later.
Modeling, thank you for the tier 1. I appreciate it. So they're kind of playing into the narrative right now of how there are both people who are gender fluid and there are people who detransition. The percentage of people who detransition is very low. The percentage of people comparatively who are have an incredible improvement of life if they undergo things that will help reduce their gender dysphoria. It's in most meta studies, usually typically around 95% at this point. And if you want to use those as a tool to further fear-mongering about trans people, they're very effective. It's why the right's been doing it for a very long time, and now we're starting to see it amongst liberals like Jimmy Dore and clown shoes like these three.
I didn't even know there was such a thing as a puberty block. Puberty blocker.
I didn't even know those puberty blockers. I didn't even know what that was. Yeah, I assume so, Jimmy. Even though you said you've learned so much over the past 10 years, I was guessing this is probably the first time you'd learned a lot about these issues and why you're celebrating Bill Maher right now, and you're so happy that he made the sequence, this incredibly transphobic sequence, by the way. And yes, we confirmed with Political Poppy that, in fact, the Finns have made a bad turn in starting to look contrary to puberty blockers, but as we stated on the show so many times before, puberty blockers have been used for a very long time. They are used on cis children. They are safe and reversible, and they are a very effective method at reducing children's gender dysphoria. But yeah, let's hear about puberty blockers.
Blocker. Did you know that?
No.
I thought that I thought that was my biology lab partner. Come on, am I right?
Did they end it? Did they end that because it was like a condition for getting into NATO? Maybe.
What? Political Poppy says mainly the Swedes, but Finland had other sucky things. Norway and Denmark seem better.
That's what First Amendment is all about. It's about you have to guarantee the speech, the free speech.
And this is a phenomenon we need to take into account when we look at this issue. Yes, part of the rise in LGBT numbers is from people feeling free enough to tell it to a pollster, and that's all to the good. But some of it is, it's trendy. Penis equals man. Okay, boomer. Remember, the prime directive.
He said it, so I don't have to.
Of every teen is anything to shock and challenge the squares who brought you up. It's why nobody gets a nose ring at 56. And if you haven't noticed that with kids, doing something for the likes is more important than their own genitals, you haven't been paying attention. Dr. Erica Anderson is a prominent 71-year-old clinical psychologist who is herself transgender and who now says, I think it's gone too far. The LA Times summarizes, she's come to believe that some children identifying as trans are falling under the influence of their peers and social media. If you attend a small dinner party of typically very liberal upper-income Angelenos, it is not uncommon to hear parents who each have a trans kid having a conversation about that. What are the odds of that happening in Youngstown, Ohio?
I don't see why he's so smug and satisfied. Oh yeah, I do, because this is just the same things that he's believed. So these are the talking points that we were hearing all the time, by the way, on the right for the past couple of years. I mean, we've watched so many videos by so many different figures, everyone from No BS to the Quartering, Geeks and Gamers, Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, all of them. And now you're hearing them from liberals in the form of Bill Maher and being ever so pleasing to the clown shoes left as well.
If this spike in trans children is all natural, why is it regional? Either Ohio is shaming them or California is creating them.
Why do you not realize what you just said out loud? How did you not process that information? And you also said previous to the statement that you were like, well, I mean, if this is indicative that more people are feeling more comfortable in areas where it's not as legislated against, all for the good. Yeah, all for the good. Absolutely all for the good. What part about this is scaring you? Unless you are scared by gay people, trans people, unless something about being those things frightens you, what is the problem if more people are reporting as such? And or even if it was true, which is not, that there's some kind of ideology that's infecting people and increasing the numbers, so we'll be 100% LGBTQ plus by, what was that, 2050 or 2060? Even if that was the case, and I know you did it as a joke, but why is that something that's so deeply disturbing? And why do you think, at the end of the day, people would want to do something that makes their lives incredibly more difficult in every way? Simply for this, a fad to trend, to suddenly be like, oh yes, yeah, this is definitely going to make my life easier in all respects.
It's like that day we suddenly all needed bottled water all the time. If we can't admit that in certain enclaves there is some level of trendiness to the idea of being anything other than straight, then this is not a serious science-based discussion. It's a blow being struck in the culture wars using children as cannon fodder. I don't understand parents who won't let their 9-year-old walk to the corner without a helmet, an EpiPen, and a GPS tracker.
Yeah, fuck the EpiPens.
You're fine.
Transition surgery.
Sorry, boys.
Whose parents can afford EpiPens and transition?
They really like that joke, eh? My wife. His wife is in the control room, by the way.
If you're a man who wants to experience life without a pair of balls, you do not have to get surgery. You can get married.
Yeah, my wife.
And never forget, children are impressionable and very, very stupid. Kids don't know why mom drinks every day or why dad has 2 cell phones.
It's funny that he said that kids are impressionable and very, very stupid, and then lists out a couple of things that adults are doing. Also, when it comes to that, when it comes to children not knowing who they are, I mean, it's rich for a bunch of cis people to be telling a bunch of trans kids you are just stupid children. You have no idea who you are or what you want to be. Even so, it's the reason why, in order to get treatments for gender dysphoria, you have to go through things like speaking to a medical doctor. And a medical doctor is the one who's going to assess that and then who's going to prescribe what they think will be the best treatment. If that treatment includes hormone therapy, not hormone therapy, puberty blockers, that is something that, again, safe, reversible, shown to lower and improve, lower gender dysphoria, improve kids' quality of life. I don't understand why you would want to stand in the way of all this outside of you have bigotry towards trans people and they scare you, to be totally frank with you. If you understood the science and then on top of that, you're suddenly like, yeah, but like, yeah, they're cutting off their genitals. You know, these kids, they're like cutting off their penises and they're just kids. Why should kids do that? Again, fear-mongering, not based in reality. The same things the right wing has been doing for a long time, now being parroted on the other side. These both are supposed to be allies, by the way, because they say so. You know, it's allies or else. That's always been Jimmy Dore's. And he's been flirting with this for a long time now. He's been doing a lot of these segments where he says, like, I thought I was an ally. Now people are saying that I can't say these things out loud.
I don't know why that's funny.
Maybe the girl who hates girly stuff just needs to learn that being female doesn't mean you have to act like a Kardashian.
You didn't like that one? That one didn't land?
Maybe childhood makes you sad sometimes, and there are other solutions besides hand me the dick saw.
Oh, was that too far?
And look,
reject that joke.
I'm sure the vast...
Oh, shit. Okay, so we have a bar. We have a bar. We found the bar. That's it. So that's where Jimmy Dore's allyship begins. That's where he separates himself from the liberal. All right, got it. Okay, and now we know. And now we know.
The majority of parents do not take this lightly. And that is very hard to know when something is real or just a phase.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'll be honest. I did not think there would be a line. I thought that was going to get another. Hey, yo.
I understand being trans is different. It's innate. But kids do also have phases. They're kids. It's all phases. The dinosaur phase, the Hello Kitty phase. One day they want to be an astronaut. The next day you can't get them to leave their room. Gender fluid. Kids are fluid about everything. If kids knew what they wanted to be at age 8, the world would be filled with cowboys and princesses.
You're doing the Matt Walsh joke there, by the way. If I can identify as a princess or if I can identify as a cowboy, that means that's the same as my gender identity. Because attack helicopters, you get it, right?
That'd be a great world.
I wanted to be a pirate. Thank God nobody took me seriously.
Again, that's the entire theme of a children's book, a transphobic children's book that Matt Walsh wrote. You're doing the helicopter jokes right now.
And scheduled me for
like you're supposed to be a liberal. You're supposed to be a leftist. You're fully buying into the one joke.
eye removal and peg leg surgery.
So where are allies supposed to be found? I know he's not a leftist, but like, where honestly are they supposed to be found at the end of the day? If this is basically what you're going to get from libs, if libs are going to be like, oh well, those conservatives, they're sure pretty intense. Yeah. Hey, have you heard this joke about I identify as an attack helicopter? I just thought of it.
There you go.
My hands were too small. You know, there's a bunch of stuff that, like, all the like chopping the dick off things are like kind of, you know, especially if you know anybody trans, like that's like not really all, like, in fact, I wouldn't say that's advisable 90% of the times. And like the first friend I had that did that transition when I was in college.
Here's some anecdotes and why we know more about trans experiences than trans people.
The reason why you're saying that they give them the puberty blockers
to make you more feminine. Like if we catch it young, maybe we can stop you from going through a full male puberty, and then you'll be a more feminine. You know,
you'll be a prettier
kind of
woman.
Like essentialism about women, really. But would you say?
So they'll be, and they're
it's essentialism about women. Wow. I don't know why on topics this serious they decide that they feel like they want to be authorities on it to just have these kind of discussions. He just learned what puberty blockers were. He called them puberty blockers, but this is the first time he's ever heard about them.
Their eyes, they'll look more feminine and female and pretty.
Yeah, because
you're not going to go through the process of puberty and start to look more like the gender you don't identify with, causing more gender dysphoria. Honestly, it's conversations and assholes like these that like directly contribute to a whole bunch of the problems that trans kids have in broader society. The consistent vilification of them. I don't get it. What are we talking about here?
Didn't go through it blocked the hormones, so
right.
You go through the you know, I mean, I'm reducing it to being pretty, but you know, I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff to it, but that's what the idea is with that. It's just that's a little experiment. Even
it's about being pretty. It's what it is, because the whole thing's a trend, and they just want to look prettier, apparently.
Even that to people that need hormones, it's like because of older people where it's like you can weigh the side effects. Like doing the kids seems a little.
Well, I know this is kind of...
It's already done to cis kids. I didn't see any of you making an entire video then.
Groups for some reason gets to be the spokesman, like the media decides that, and then you know, a lot of people don't. Dave Chappelle's friend who got bullied to death, basically, his trans friend.
By the way, it's not some random media spokesman. This is the overwhelming consensus of the medical community. They're the ones putting out that we completely support this. We feel that this is an effective and safe method of lowering children who experience gender dysphoria. Like, why is it that you think that this is just some loudmouth, blue-haired, online LGBTQ plus individual who's just making all this noise, and you have to be so careful about what you say, because if you say the wrong thing, you get the cancel. And then when you get the cancel, everyone's going to think you're transphobic, and that's a terrible thing to be labeled with.
Of course, like a despicable industry is always trying to sell you makeup and all this other stuff. It's like, this is great in surgery because you're not good enough. Like, it really does play into that, like, kind of a sick, like,
oh, fuck you. We're talking about a medical condition. Like, would you say the same thing about someone who lost their hair from chemotherapy and then wanted to buy a wig? Would you be like, well, it's kind of gross how, like, the wig industry plays into the beauty standards of the beauty industry, and they want to buy a wig because it makes them feel pretty or something? I don't know. I don't really fully understand what's going on here.
Money thing. And then you get to look like, no, I just really care about these kids and they're, you know.
But I think, Bill, so my question is, do you think, like, so the fact that Bill Maher, now I'm sure a lot of trans activists, the ones who I've seen, they're going to say that's transphobic. They already were saying it on Twitter.
It's unbelievably transphobic.
Your agenda while you have the floor. Keep ramming your agenda until you're, that's the I noticed that with a lot of kind of activists, like, until
right.
If none of the three of you can recognize that was an incredibly transphobic monologue that he released, yeah, all three of you may be transphobes. If all three of you think like, what was so controversial about that? It's just saying a lot of weird things. The only thing I really had a problem with was probably the dick cutting off joke. That was a little far. I think you could have probably been a little more sensitive there. I'm an ally. But anyways, what's wrong? Is it controversial to say these kind of things? All three, yeah. Tinkle's currently hiding behind the beanie.
Someone stops you, just keep pushing as far as you can. But I think that's creating now, it's got to a point where it's creating a problem where you got to like settle down and just talk to people who have valid concerns and explain. Any question I had, no matter how stupid, was answered to me by like, and not just trans, like I remember years ago in New York, I used to have a joke about it when my girlfriend, we were talking to these two gay guys in the subway, and now I didn't blurt this out to them, but she's like, you really like it in the butt? Like she blurted something out to them, and they very, I would say politely and nicely were like, well, no, we don't all do that. Like that's not a, I remember being
the old "let me teach you" trope, you know? That constant thing. Like I didn't know, okay, it was offensive to, you know, ask that black guy in the subway if I could rub his hair. I didn't know that was offensive. And it's like, but if you would have just been calm and he would have taught me about it and told me about why, you know, this is something that I shouldn't do, I wouldn't have done it, you know. That I just wish they were nicer, you know. I wish they were just nicer to us cis folks who've had a really hard time as of recently. Now, here's one little olive branch. Don't get me wrong. I think if you're having conversations with, and I'm saying this as a cis person, with your fellow cis family members, and a whole bunch of them have very draconian views on all this, they're really behind the times, and you want to convince them, then yeah, it doesn't make any sense for you to be like, pass the gravy, you fucking turf transphobes, because most likely it's gonna make for an awkward, you know, family experience. Probably not the best thing to do, right? Or pour the gravy on their laps while saying that same thing. Something like that. Probably not gonna win in the hearts of minds. So yeah, this might be one of those things where it falls upon you know, cis people to try to explain to other cis people why the overwhelming majority of everything that Bill Maher and them have been saying in this segment are wrong. Now, that courtesy is not going to be extended to Jimmy Dore, obviously, or Kurt Metzger, or Jackson Hinkle, because they're all large media figures in their own rights to varying degrees. And yes, they should be the ones with the responsibility to learn about this kind of shit before they go on their programs and spout blatant transphobia. So fuck all three of them. But when it comes to everyday conversations, yes, absolutely. I have had a lot more success speaking to cousins, uncles, aunts, relatives, even some friends who might not be 100% on, you know, the furthest current science on these issues about, you know, well, here's one way of explaining it. Here's one way of discussing it. Here's one way of exploring it. And most likely people, they have preconceptions because they've been fed them by these kind of people about a lot of these issues. They genuinely feel that trans kids are at danger of suddenly just trying to fit into a phase and a fad, and because it's going to make them more popular, cut their genitals off. And like, come on, can we all realize it's gone too far? It's gone way too far, that this is an actual problem. We need to talk about that these trans kids are just going to cut off their penises because all of a sudden they've bought into a fad. I mean, am I transphobic for even bringing this up, right?
Shock like that.
Oh, hey, Jeff Woldrow. If everyone go check out his channel.
They don't all do anal. Like, I would feel gypped if I found out. If I was a guy, I'd be like, that's like turkey, Thanksgiving with no turkey.
No, I knew that. I knew some, when I came to Hollywood, some comedians who...
No. Every gay guy doesn't have to have anal sex. They can do whatever the fuck they want. It's none of your concern.
Were gay. And I asked that same question. And my gay friends...
Yeah, but did you word it like that? Did you say, hey, do you like taking it up the ass? Hey, do you like taking it in the bum? Y'all spread her out in the poo, don't ya? If you say it to that, yeah, that's fucking really offensive. I can understand why someone wouldn't want to take that moment to be like, oh, hi, friend. I just wanted to take a moment to have a serious conversation with you and talk to you about why these stereotypes that you're espousing right now are misinformed, deeply offensive, and I'd just like to have a conversation, rather than be like, fuck this homophobe. Why are you trying to talk to me about my sex life?
Said, no, I don't like that. I don't do it. I was like,
Yeah,
really?
Sides. We just like sides.
I was like, really? I didn't know that. Wow. So, but I think this being on HBO is a big deal. I hope that this will help open up conversation.
So there it is. All things summarized, all things said. That's the takeaway from all this, is that fucking Jimmy Dore is really happy that someone on HBO, a comedian nonetheless, was able to ask a lot of the questions that he wished he could say without being called a transphobe. But now it's just out there in the ether for more people to ingest and for more people to regurgitate. Doesn't have to come from the right and the far right anymore. You know, can come from liberals and can come from pat socks and can come from all corners of the internet. Bigotry.
And so people who consider themselves allies, I mean, I want the LGBTQ people to feel comfortable and be able to get employment and housing and not be discriminated in any way possible and all that stuff.
I just don't think their children, if they happen to be trans, should receive necessary medical care. It's very simple. I'm an ally. I'm for trans rights. They're human rights, after all. I just don't feel that children should get potentially life-saving care. That's all. I mean, does that make me a bigot?
I thought that was the goal. I thought that was always the goal, to have full participation in society and be treated as everyone else. And I'm all for that.
Yeah, trans kids are not. They're not. That's the problem.
I think what he's doing is like, hey, you know, we need to be able to have a discussion about things without being called a transphobe. You have to be able to talk about things considering that we're allies. But we have to be able to have a
You can't be an ally in name alone. It's so weird. Like, do you know how weird it would be if he had a similar segment where he was like condescending to black people, and then every 5 minutes he's like, anyways, I'm an ally. I know what's good for you. I know what's good for you. Come on. Why you all talking to me as if this is something that's deeply offensive or trying to talk? Like, I know what's right. Okay. I don't understand why you keep calling me a racist.
Conversation about that stuff, and I think that's what he's saying. And I think that him doing that on HBO, like doing it on YouTube, it's not going to do anything, but on HBO that will have an impact because that is funded and it is the establishment platform. So and that's what I think. I don't know, we'll see what happens. Maybe it won't have any effect. I don't know. But what
is HBO specifically the establishment platform? Wouldn't it be like the big five? I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all corporate monopolies, there's no question about that. If you feel somehow this is like there's a messaging going on that there's somehow going to be the establishment works directly in tandem with the government, and they actually have people who speak to each other to spread this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't want to steel man the conspiracy theory too much here, but
yeah, right. You can see when stuff triggers. I mean,
the problem with this has nothing to do, by the way, with a deep government conspiracy or the establishment or anything like that. It shows you how normalized transphobia is. And it, like, Bill Maher doing that segment, he's not getting notes from on above. If anything, it probably makes HBO nervous. You can hear the opposite messaging in another popular show in their series, like John Oliver, who's very on the side of trans rights and has described exactly what is wrong with every single thing that Bill Maher has said before on his show. So, I mean, that's just going to, you know, nix out the possibility that this comes from on high. It's Bill Maher is a transphobe. He considers himself an ally, just as you both do, or all three of you do. But, like, that's how normalized it is. What he's saying, it shouldn't worry you because it's like this is part of, you know, the establishment is finally speaking some kind of sense here. It should worry you because this is the way most people will think who have been lied to about these issues. And, you know, if it's a multi-million-dollar studio like HBO, or it's someone, a self-described stoner in his garage making the show but still broadcasting to 10,000 live people, you're reinforcing all of it. And this is the very reason why trans kids have suicidal ideation, is a large stigmatization by society.
I think that stupid Amber Heard Depp case is like, basically there's a lot of Amber Heards in all of areas of activism, and a lot of load-bearing narratives are collapsing.
What a surprise that it overlaps with the MRA, Amber Heard is the greatest enemy that ever existed philosophy.
So that's why you could see mainstream people start to... I always give Bill more credit. Whatever stuff that he said I thought was dumb, he always was a free speech guy and said it.
Yes.
You know, so I give him that as a comic. Like,
doesn't matter how transphobic he is. I mean, he's for free speech. Doesn't matter how racist he is. He's for free speech at the end of the day. Could be really homophobic. I don't know. But I mean, he's for free speech. So got to give it to him.
I think Chappelle probably was the Chappelle wars were probably a bigger factor even than this, but this is definitely an indicator. I agree on that.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So I'm glad all of you think that this is a good movement, a good direction. That there is now not only these talking points coming from the right to far right, people like Steven Crowder, they're now being regurgitated by people like Bill Maher, and they're getting the seal of approval from people who espouse to be leftists. That's how fucked up the situation is becoming.
So I'm getting another text puberty blockers and plastic surgery for trans people reinforces gender norms and stereotypes.
Yeah, right.
You can only be a pretty woman if you have a small nose, etc. I didn't know
I don't
any
want
of
to be
that.
a
I don't know
woman. I
any.
want to be a pretty.
Did you know any of that?
Like, genuinely, fuck all the way off. Do you think every single person is getting 100%, like, I want to look like a Kardashian plastic surgery? Like, gender-affirming plastic surgery typically is going to have a range of things. It's quite comprehensive. It's not simply because they want to look hotter and these ideal beauty standards and corporate consumerism. Like, this is all to help people with gender dysphoria.
No, not at all.
I never even heard of this. I didn't even know they had puberty blockers until today. I didn't know anything. So
why not learn before making this segment, this fucking 30-minute segment titled Bill Maher pushes back against trans extremism. Trans extremism. Bill Maher was pushing back against the broad consensus of the medical community, and in relation is directly going to harm trans people.
See the Dustin Hoffman
I didn't even know about puberty blockers. What are these puberty
interview about
blockers?
Tootsie, where he was talking about how it opened his eyes, and they dressed him up like Tootsie, and he was you know, he goes, if I'm a woman, I want to be a pretty woman, you know? So I said, and they're like, this is the best we can do. And he starts.
Yeah, and Wilco's got a really good point. I mean, it should be brought up that, like, the amount of people who are capable of affording these kind of very expensive surgeries makes it prohibitively expensive for a lot of them. And that includes bottom surgery. I mean, if you're in the United States and you don't have a very good insurance plan, how are you expecting to pay for a lot of these things? Which, again, could be directly useful for lowering your gender dysphoria.
Crying in the interview. You know, I started crying. I thought, how many amazing women would I not talk to because they look like. It was one of the greatest narcissist actor thing of like, how many women who have been robbed.
So yeah, on display, it's universal. It doesn't matter what section, I guess, of the political compass we're supposed to be. I mean, you know, I know the patriotic socialists are kind of in the top left authoritarian, fasci types, but like liberals coming straight from Bill Maher's mouth, whatever Jimmy Dore is supposed to identify, anti-AOC, I guess, is his political ideology. But broadly speaking, that's how normalized transphobia is. It doesn't matter who it is, even people who want to say, well, no, I'm an ally or else. That's my philosophy, you know? Also, most trans surgeries are gatekept by BMI, so if you're fat, you're shit out of luck pretty much. Wow. You'll usually get them pictures of AFAB family members if you're getting FFS. Interesting. His political ideology is hating Democrats. Yep. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to embark on a mighty jihad in your name. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble jester, attempting in vain to get you to laugh. To our valiant knights of the Round Table, Benji Arnie, Tech Tink, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood. It doesn't matter what I believe, it only matters what I can prove. Egbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Jenna Tao, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevbot, EXE, Brian Ephraim, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our mugs and salute our brave heroes off to another glorious conquest.